hear her aunt. Great.
Okay.
There's Sarah in Poland. Hi.
You look great. Good to see you. Judith Khan coming on. I missed seeing the whole screen here. I better go find myself again. Amy, how many grandkids do you have now? Are you muted? Okay.
3.
That was a wonderful voice. There we go. That's
Oh,
great.
there we go.
Okay.
There we go.
There we go. What a great bunch. Good looking bunch.
You're looking good, Priscilla.
Are we ready? Just tell me when you want to go. Huh? It's 4:01. Are people still coming in or?
Yes,
Okay.
people are still signing in. There's a pace to it, so
Okay, well,
we're waiting for a few more.
1 minute to go. Is that it? Oh, Martha Soltis, how good to see you. Judy Khan, hi.
Yeah, and
This is exciting. Very exciting to see everyone.
Ruby, where's my phone? Aunt Julie's writing us. Yes. Yeah, where's my phone? Did you say in the kitchen?
Okay.
My alarm went off.
oh, now it's called, it's connecting with us.
Mary's there.
Isn't it at the bottom
Okay,
here?
there's Julie down there. Okay.
What are you clicking, man?
Where are you trying to look?
I know where I'm kind of lost.
You're lost? Jennifer, how can you be lost?
God.
God forbid we should lose you.
Can you see me? I can't see you. I'll have to.
We can see you.
Oh,
Yeah, you're there.
I'm there. Oh,
Okay. If you're not on a gallery view, look in the upper right-hand corner of your screen, and you'll see a word view, and it looks like a Rubik's Cube. It's got 9 little dots on it. And
Yeah.
just press on that, and that'll give you the gallery. You'll get to see most people, and who's not on this screen, follow the arrow to the
There it is.
Okay.
Helen, you can't see.
launch meeting.
Okay.
Oh, now I'm back. Oh, I can see all these gorgeous people. I'm back.
Okay, there we go. A minute. It's good to see everybody.
Priscilla, the floor is yours.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
You look gorgeous.
Priscilla, you're muted.
Now I'm unmuted. Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm so excited for what's going to happen in this next hour. Before we share some of that information, I think I know just about everybody, but there are a couple of people who may be new to a gathering like this. I'm Priscilla Costner, and happy to be the opening speaker, guest host for you. I'm joined by my two co-chairs in here, Sharon Wheel and Liz Menashe. Would you both wave, please? There, Liz, you'll be hearing from them later. And it's just good to see so many people, so many wonderful faces. It's been a long time. I have a long history with the Jewish Federation and the Jewish community here. If you don't know my background, I've been both a lay leader and a professional since coming to Portland in 1974. So this has really been a wonderful journey, going back and forth and meeting people, not just here in town, but all over the country, including our guest speaker today, Julie Platt. And we met as she was coming onto Young Leadership Cabinet, Young Women's Cabinet, and I was the staff for that down in Los Angeles. And she said, oh, I'm so excited. I'm going to the conference. I'm going to the cabinet. And my sister is going with me. And our older sister has been on cabinet before. And I said, and who's your older sister? She said, Nancy Barron. And I said, she's married to my cousin. Okay. So we have a family connection here. I don't know how exactly what the relationship is, but I'm calling it cousins by marriage. All right, so Julie is our speaker, and I want to introduce and welcome Amy Bressman and Nancy Barron. I don't know where they are on your screens. I can see Amy at the lower right of mine, and Nancy's on the next page. So it's really special that they have joined us today and to hear their sister and for us to be all together. Anyway, there's a lot happening. It's springtime. Kids are back in school, most kids. Yes, people are getting vaccinated. The future is looking a little bit brighter. And one of the joys that I have today is introducing my daughter, one of my daughters, Jemmy Costner Mansfield. My other daughter is somewhere on the screen, Dana Simpson. Okay, but before we get started with that introduction, I just want to go over some notes for you, some housekeeping notes here. We're going to have the session recorded. It will be recorded, so if you miss it or have to leave, or if you know someone who missed it, it will be available, and Wendy will be getting that information out as soon as possible. We ask that everybody remain muted while the conversation is going on. And at the conclusion of the conversation between Julie and Jemmy, we're going to open the floor for questions and answers, Q&A. You'll be able to submit your questions directly in the chat to Wendy's spot or wendy@jewishportland.org. And they'll be able to let the speakers know what your questions are. We hope to get to all of those questions. We'll try that. Or if you would prefer, you might raise your hand in reactions. At the bottom of your screen, you'll see highlighted a nice little smiley face that says reactions. And if you click on that, you could see hands clapping or a thumbs up or something. Just put on one of those, or your raised hand. You can raise your hand, and then they'll know to call on you to get a question. Okay, any questions about that? No, okay, all right. So I am going to let you know a little bit about Jemmy. Many of you know her. I used to be known as Jemmy's mother and Dana's mother. Now I'm known as, she's known, and I'm the secondary person here. How do I say this? Jemmy went to Beaverton High and majored in theater there. She went to UCLA and majored in theater there. Her husband-to-be was also a theater major. You see a theme here. She and Greg have been back in Portland since 1992 as they finished college. Jemmy worked at Temple Beth Israel for 23 years, 23 and a half years even, did just about anything and everything there she could do except be the rabbi. I think sometimes she thought she was also. Anyway, she was well known for her popular Purim spiels that she wrote and directed and sometimes even participated in. Then she went to Cedar-Sinai Park for 3.5 years as the director of spiritual life there, and did a lovely job. And then has been at Sherry Torah as the executive director for the past 2 years. Another little piece of her busyness is the Jewish Oregon TV, JOTV, that she is hosting. It's directed by Jen, Director Knudsen. I think Jen is on with us today, and Ken Klein. And if you haven't watched any of those videos, you should go on YouTube and look them up. They're really fun. So I'm going to let Jemmy take over, and she and Julie will entertain us and inform us and answer our questions in the next hour. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Mother. Appreciate the nice warm welcome. In addition to, Mom mentioned our family connection with Julie. The years that I was down at UCLA, Julie and Mark acted as my host family, so I had a place to go for holidays or just to spend an afternoon, and it was just really, really special. to know I had family that close by. So I know that many of you have read Julie's bio, but I will just give her this nice warm introduction so you know all that she's done and continues to do. Julie Platt is the board secretary of the Jewish Federations of North America and is the chair of the board of directors of the Jewish Federation of Greater Los Angeles. Concurrently, she serves as chair of the Foundation for Jewish Camp. Prior to her current role at the Jewish Federation of Greater Los Angeles, Ms. Platt, Julie, served as LA's General Campaign Chair, Chair of LA Federation's Ensuring the Jewish Future Strategic Initiative, and Chair of LA Federation Sylvia Weiss Women's Philanthropy. She was honored with the Ruby Award for her commitment to leadership and community service presented by Women's Philanthropy. Ms. Platt's lifelong connection with the Jewish community began at Camp Ramah in Ojai, California, and I'm a Camp Ramah alum also. And today she's a driving force behind raising funds to subsidize tuition for Jewish summer camps, allowing more families to provide this transformative experience for their children. A graduate of the University of Pennsylvania, Ms. Platt serves on the Board of Trustees as well as Penn Hillel's National Board of Governors. So please join me in welcoming Julie Platt.
Thanks, Jemmy.
It's so good to see you.
So nice to be with you, and thank you for inviting me.
So, all mom's doing, it sounds like, but I'm so pleased and honored to be sharing a screen with you. So thank you.
Thank you.
So a bio can only tell us so much, and there were a lot of accolades in there. We'd much rather learn more about you from you. So if you could just take a little time and tell us more about your history, your roots in Kansas, your time at Ramah, at Penn, and of course, all that you do for Los Angeles and the community.
Sure. So I'm originally from Wichita, Kansas, and am so delighted to be joined by my two older sisters who grew up with me along with our younger brother. I grew up in a community where every person in the Jewish community made a contribution, and I don't just mean financial, but made a contribution to the life of the Jewish community because we were so few. And we were all a family, all of us who lived in Wichita. I had a wonderful religious school education in a very small religious school. I probably am one of very few people who loved going to after school religious school because my class happened to be 7 guys and me. And we had a really good time on Monday and Wednesday afternoons and Sunday mornings. I grew up in an observant home. I have thought a lot over the preparatory time for this phone conversations or Zoom conversation about what sort of drove me to where my participation and involvement is today. And I think one of those things was the very firm boundaries around ritual observance in my home growing up. It wasn't necessarily a question or a choice, but something that gave us a lot of roots and grounding, knowing every Friday night we would all be around the Shabbat table together, and every holiday would be observed, and every Shabbos morning we were in shul. And I think those things gave me a very firm foundation in Judaism and in the values and ethics that drive me, certainly modeled by my parents. I followed in their footsteps, and so did my sisters and my brother. They set beautiful examples for us, not only about if you are lucky enough to be on the giving side of the community, what a blessing, but also to give of your time if you had the ability and the opportunity to do so, and we all have. I certainly think, coupled with that beautiful foundation that my family gave me, was my experience in Jewish summer camp. There is no question that everything I feel as a Jewish leader came to find its beginnings at Jewish summer camp. I am an attendee of Camp Ramah in California, and am grateful always that my parents had the foresight to send me to Jewish summer camp in California from Kansas, where my first cousins were campers as well. And I think honestly, most of my Hebrew language skills began, and I still have, from my summers in Jewish summer camp. And a lot of what I learned, not only from my own mother, but from my Jewish summer camp counselors, guided the kind of mother I wanted to be and taught me a lot about parenting, which I recall and use always. I left Wichita to go to the University of Pennsylvania and was a kid in a candy store. All my friends were Jewish instead of none of my friends being Jewish. I graduated in a high school class of 671, of which I was the only Jew. And in my freshman year of college, everywhere I turned, there were Jews. And I had a blast. I became very engaged at Penn Hillel immediately. I met my husband the first week at Penn. We ultimately became engaged during Kabbalat Shabbat services at Penn Hillel. To this day, I was a founding co-chair of the National Board of Penn Hillel and was actually on a call with them just before this, continue to want other students to have the kind of enriched experience at Penn Hillel that I did. I then moved to New York City and was engaged in the Federation there. And at the end of my time living in New York, joined National Young Leadership Cabinet, which helped me transition to a life in California that was led by my husband's move to engage in the entertainment community in Los Angeles. We raised 5 children in Los Angeles in Jewish day school and at Camp Ramah. And I, as you have heard from my bio, could not be more engaged in the Jewish community in Los Angeles and love every minute of it, not only because the needs are so great and the participation needed, but because all of my deep friendships have come from engaging in the Jewish community, sharing time with people who share the same values and priorities that I do.
Wow, thank you. I loved hearing about some of those moments that just changed the course of your life, that you met Mark so soon into being at Penn, getting engaged at Kabbalat Shabbat, hearing about your family around the Shabbat table and for holidays. I wonder if you could share just another couple of experiences that really were formative for you, that shaped you.
Let's see, let me add on to those. One that I have not shared is that I was part of the Wexner Heritage Fellowship as a young leader. And I'm proud to say that so were my 3 other siblings. Not any of us were in the same class, but I know we are one of very few families where all 4 of us are Wexner grads. And I learned so very much about leadership from being part of the Wexner program. And I would say that my involvement followed my life. When I was at Hillel, obviously I was engaged with college students. When I moved to New York, I was part of something that my sister Amy was the chair of at the time, which was called New York Couples, which was young couples engaged together as newly marrieds or new young family starters. I then came to LA and copied it completely and started LA Couples so that I would meet young couples who were at the same stage of life as I was. And then became involved at the day school when my kids were involved, and ultimately chaired the board of our children's Jewish day school. And then they were camper age, and I ultimately chaired the board of Camp Ramah. So my involvement followed the age and the engagement of my children and of my husband and me, and then became more and more engaged in the Federation as I learned more and more about the breadth and depth of its work, not only in Los Angeles, but in Israel and around the world and nationally through the Federation system.
It is so impressive how some people go and just get involved in one area. You took the Jewish area and went to many different organizations. You spread the talent and the skill and the passion around and inspired others. So having served in leadership for Ramah, and Federation for Jewish Camp, then Jewish Federation, and everywhere else, where do you feel you've made the greatest impact, or are they all equally impactful for you?
I would say one that will be obvious and one maybe not so obvious. So Jewish camping, that's going to be a theme. you're going to hear me say it in a lot of different ways because it informs so much of who I am. I think probably the biggest impact I've had in the Los Angeles Jewish Federation is shining a very bright light on Jewish camping. And over the time that I have become involved, we have become more and more engaged in spending much more money in the scholarships and access to Jewish summer camp. Because around almost every leadership table at the Federation, if you ask people to raise their hand if they are Jewish camp alumni, they will predominantly raise their hand. And it's an obvious winner. So I think that's something I'm very proud of. And I'm now chairing the board of Foundation for Jewish Camp. I'm able to impact camps nationwide in trying to raise the profile of the whole Jewish camp movement. And I'd say the other thing that I feel proud of is bringing people who were not engaged before to the Federation world. And I'm sure all of you have done that. You're all wonderful participants in the Federation in Portland. And I'm sure that you try your best to bring people into the fold. And I think one of the things that I have learned is that the payoff is not automatic, that just by introducing someone, it doesn't mean that they're going to join you and then grow their participation at the next level. But I think that I've set an example for an awful lot of my peers who then ultimately became engaged. When I was a younger parent, I would tell the people at meetings with me, at that time we were in person and you would dress up out of your mom clothes to go to a Federation meeting. And I would often say to my girlfriends, don't change back before you go to pickup. So that people would ask when you showed up, not in your sweats or jeans, why are you dressed up? You would have the opportunity to say, this is where I was and this is why. And I did that in every carpool line for the 20 years my kids were in Jewish day school, because they're 15 years apart from the first one to the last one. So I was really in that carpool line for actually 25 years. And I loved being able to tell people why I had on nice pants or a dress when I picked up from carpool.
Wow. So I'm curious, as you've brought people into the world of Jewish philanthropy, into these passion projects that mean so much, where have you seen some of these people grow? And can you give us a specific or an experience or story where somebody that you mentored or encouraged took it even further?
So I'm particularly proud of the person that succeeded me as the general campaign chair in Los Angeles. Her name is Orna Wolins, and she's now on the board of Jewish Federations of North America as well. She didn't see herself that way. She didn't see herself as a person who could ask people for money, who could speak publicly, who could lead an organization. And I think because I beat her over the head over probably 20 years of saying it's all there, trust that it is, she now believes it herself and has seen, she became general campaign chair at the beginning of the pandemic. There's a really tough time to take on that role, but she has seen what her leadership has brought to the city of Los Angeles. Our campaign was better in 2020 than it was in 2019. So I think I feel very good about the people that I have helped to believe in themselves. And I think sometimes you don't believe you can do it. And you need somebody giving you that little prod that says, or maybe I would say big prod, that I believe in you and I'll be right there and I'll be right next to you. And you can run the draft of your speech by me and you can deliver it to me the day before, but you can do this. And she's a really good example of that. I have another friend who didn't believe in herself. And I don't like to think that this is often women, but in the cases that I can think of, it is women who don't think that they have the ability to do this, and darned if they don't. So I spend a lot of time convincing women who I see all the potential in the world that they have it.
Was there someone who filled that role for you as you were starting out?
What I would say is that my parents presumed it. there was never any conversation about would there be some different leadership track for my sisters versus my brother. I mean, it just and there was zero difference in the leadership responsibilities that my mother took on versus my father. I never even gave it a second thought. And I think that example, that there's no difference in what's expected of a woman who has leadership abilities versus a man that has leadership abilities. We all are doing it for the same reason.
And I know you've talked about how you modeled it for your kids. And I do remember when I was down in LA, there was one time I was talking to you and it was around Super Sunday and you said that Samantha was going to be helping. And she was young. I mean, young. And I was like, oh, is she going to do what, helping to bring the cards over here when they were completed or bringing someone some water or pens? And you said, no, she's making phone calls, which blew me away because I haven't had that experience that young. So that has stuck with me. So it's just
Thank you, Jimmy.
wonderful thought. In talking about how to involve people, how to open that door and encourage for a lot of women, especially women who are new to a community or getting to know people. Oftentimes it's those big events that you do, put on the hose and the heels or the nice slacks for. We traditionally go gather the JCC for the cocktail hour and then schmooze and then go into the big ballroom for a speaker and a talk and a solicitation. COVID's kind of put paid to those kinds of events, and where you're talking that the campaign did better during a COVID year than a non-COVID year. Will we ever recapture that type of in-person interaction that is so crucial to building community?
So I'll tell you a little bit about what I noticed worked during COVID, and what I think will happen after, or I hope will happen. We instituted something in Los Angeles called Cocktails and Conversation. And they were small gatherings on Zoom, 6 people, 8 people, that's all, with very little agenda other than to connect to each other. Often attended by either me or by the general campaign chair or by the CEO, somebody to guide the conversation and particularly to respond to any questions about the work in the community, but to make you feel like you were seen in something other than 25 squares, but in 6, where you could actually talk about what was the Netflix series that you really enjoyed during COVID. And boy, I got great ideas from those cocktails and conversations about what to watch next. I think people are yearning to be together in person. I think they're scared, and my sisters will attest to the fact that I'm the most scared of my 4 siblings, and I'm double vaccinated. I'm finding it the hardest to go back out into the world, but I'm doing it just slowly than they are. They're a little better at it than I am. That being said, the opportunity to hug someone, if we're both double vaccinated, to be able to look at someone in the face. My son is a senior at Penn, and he's had a virtual year that was incredibly challenging. And they had their first in-person rehearsal. And one of his friends remarked, I actually forgot what everybody's legs looked like, because they had literally only seen each other singing from here up on Zoom for a year. I do think we're looking forward to that. I do think we'll resume it. That being said, we'll have to walk before we run. We're talking about, for one of our major gift events here in Los Angeles, which usually our Hanani group is 100,000 and up, that usually we would gather and we'd be probably 100 in a room. We're talking about doing it in 5 backyards where it's 20 people in each backyard, all sharing a big screen, watching the speaker, so that we have the experience by seeing and being with each other, but that 100 may feel like too much right at the start. We're going to have to take it slow. And then sort of the extension of both those things brought together is that I think we'll have hybrids. I was actually just on a conversation about the GA. So the GA will be in Washington, D.C. in October. We have made the decision to cap it at 500. It's usually 2,000 or 3,000 people. Nobody's ready for that, even in October. So there will be a hybrid. You'll be able to be at home and participate, and you'll be able to be in person and participate. I think that's going to be the rule for a little while. And I actually think it may never go away. It may be that if you don't go to International Lion of Judah, I think we're going to be in Arizona, if I'm not mistaken, next, or somewhere near the West Coast, that you'll be able to Zoom into the plenaries and Zoom into some of the breakouts. You just won't get to be in the hallway, but you'll get to feel part of it. And I don't think we're going to lose that, because we've been able to engage in numbers we never have been able to before by being on Zoom.
Yeah. My colleagues across the synagogue movements are talking the same sort of thing. And I think among many EDs, we've all decided we are never going back down to the synagogue for an evening meeting again if we can just do it over Zoom.
Exactly.
I'm glad you mentioned the cocktails and conversation, because when we were doing our prep a few weeks ago, we did say we are in happy hour mode. So you were going to have wine next to you also. And I hope some of the other ladies in the room are having a tipple or whatever your late afternoon pandemic cocktail might be. Coronatini. I do just want to ask, what have you watched on Netflix that really was your favorite thing this whole time?
Okay, so The Restaurant. I don't know if any of you have watched this. And if you haven't, I'm so glad if I'm giving you a new idea. It's a Swedish series that takes place just after the war, just after World War II. It is so good. You have to not mind subtitles, and I don't mind them. I loved it. I mean, Schnitzel is the obvious. I just totally binge watched the 3rd season. But The Restaurant, somebody just told me about it, and I loved it. Oh, I'm sorry your husband hates subtitles. Okay, I don't mind them, and I loved this series. If it has to be one without subtitles, I loved Schitt's Creek. It was a real easy way to feel better. From Wichita, Kansas, I loved Ted Lasso. He was a basketball coach from Wichita, Kansas, who went across the pond. But The Restaurant really won this year for me.
Thank you, because I'm rewatching The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel now for the umpteenth time.
Okay, try this one instead.
Thank you. And
you got it.
Food, I like it. I see that some people are using the chat just to comment on things. And just remember, if you do have questions you want to submit for after Julie and I finish our conversation and open it up, you can send those directly to Wendy Kahn, so I'm not seeing all of the chat while it's scrolling, because it does get a little distracting here and there. And, shiny object. So let's focus back in on talking about women and philanthropy and involvement. I mean, what do you think could be the most important thing that Jewish philanthropists, especially women, should be doing collectively or individually to improve the impact on the work of the Jewish community? That was very serious after talking Netflix and wine.
No, that's okay. So I would say 2 things. I would say that you're not going to get engaged and stay engaged if it doesn't speak to you. So one of the things that I would implore you to do with your own engagement, and particularly if you are increasing your engagement, which I hope you all are always, is not to give up if what you're doing right this moment isn't the right fit. The Jewish community has a lot of fits, and you have to find the thing that makes you look forward to a meeting, not dread it. So I certainly say this a lot to our young leaders, like, don't give up on us because the first thing you tried didn't end up being the right match for you. In terms of your philanthropy, same thing. You need to know what your federation does. I'm sure Wendy would be happy to teach you everything the federation does, so that you feel so good about the thing that you are funding. The more you know, the more you'll feel so good about it. That being said, I'm sure there's something that's specifically important to you. For me, guess what that is? Jewish camping. So I give an annual gift to my federation. I would never decrease from my annual gift, but I also give an additional gift to our project that we do in Jewish camping. I don't ever want to ask our federation to do something that's not in their mission just because it matters to me. I actually don't ever do that. But something that's within our mission that specifically speaks to my passion that I can augment with my giving, I love doing that. That makes me feel great. But I wouldn't keep it to Portland. We do incredible things as a national movement. I hope you know what we did with the Human Services Match this year, what we did in helping people access PPE, in accessing PPP loans. JFNA led the way in helping people have all the information they needed at their federations. And that isn't even beginning to talk about what we do around the world through our partner at JDC and in Israel through the Jewish Agency. There is so much work to be proud of. There's just no way you're not going to find the thing that matters to you in all of that, but the more you know, the better you're going to feel about it.
Wow. So I do just want to acknowledge, since you're talking camping and your passion for camping, that somewhere in the room is Michelle Copeland, who is the executive director of B'nai B'rith Camp, and she has been working tirelessly to lobby the governor and the state in terms of leading the way to reopen overnight camps in Oregon, and that was approved just recently. So thank you, Michelle. The passion is there for our local beloved B'nai B'rith Camp.
Camps will be open this summer. And
Mhm.
I don't know who's happier about that, the kids or their parents, who are really ready for them to have a big break. But they are beyond full, beyond full.
Yeah, it's fantastic. So my mother, Priscilla, who's on here, she lies awake at nights trying to fix the world, and probably the world to come. So I'm curious, and what if you stay up nights, if there are, when you're trying to figure out how to make this world an even better place, what are the issues and the priorities for you in the Jewish world that are forefront?
That's a really good question, and one I've been thinking about also a lot. And I would say they find themselves around two focus areas. One, full disclaimer, I am the National Campaign Chair for Security for Jewish Federations of North America. We're about to launch a very big national security campaign because I, along with pretty much everyone in the United States in the Jewish community, knows we need to be fully protected, and that's just the truth. So much like the Human Services Match, we're going to have a similar match to help communities launch security programs who for some reason maybe don't have state-of-the-art security programs yet, or even a security program at all, and enhance those that exist already. And you'll hear more and more about that. It's called Live Secure, as there are for any other child. So we have our share of working through the disappointments and the rejections. But I have to also say, above it all, to have someone's dream come true is a very beautiful thing to witness as a parent. This was Ben's dream from birth, basically. And to watch him be able to do what he loves and be good at it is an unbelievable blessing. You can be good at something and not love it, and you can love something and not be good at it. But to be good at what you love the most is something for which I'm grateful for him, and he is grateful.
That's wonderful. I was going to say, what kind of legacy do you hope to leave for your children? And if you raised and continue to raise mensches who care, as a parent, isn't that what we want? So thank you for sharing some of that. Wendy, do we have time for one more before we open up to Q&A? I don't know what all sorts of questions are out there.
Jemmy, you do one more, have one more question, then everyone, if you have any questions, you can start submitting them directly to me and I will funnel them to Jemmy.
Thank you. I always love the use of a funnel. It's very good for pouring wine back in the bottle. Happens never. Never. So I just, as people are compiling their questions, you already have a lot of things you're doing. What would be, I'm sure you're always thinking about the next thing you can do. So if there is a next thing, what would be the next thing?
I am where I want to be, and I'm only growing in my involvement at Jewish Federations of North America, and I think that will continue while never leaving behind the Los Angeles Jewish community. So I do feel good about where I am, and I am speaking about the next role for them, and I look forward to it. I love being part of Jewish Federations of North America. I'm inspired by our new CEO, Eric Fingerhut. He is doing a phenomenal job. and to get to work alongside Mark Wilf. I don't know if any of you tuned into the Yom HaShoah celebration is the wrong word, but commemoration today that JFNA did, but to listen to Mark Wilf talk about the legacy of his parents who were survivors, it's quite a beautiful thing to listen to, and I'm inspired by working with him all the time. So I feel good about where I am. If there's anything I look forward to doing more, it's as my family grows. I do have 5 children. One of them has finished having children. She has 4 little boys. And my son Jonah has just begun his family. And I have 3 more who I hope will have families. It would be spending as much time as I can with them and with their children.
And I just feel like a bubby in waiting, as I say. I remember them when they were little. I remember when they were born, before they were born. Haven't aged at all. So we have a question here about one of our participants is saying it's a luxury that she has Wednesdays off work and can join in today's conversation, but how can we engage full-time working women in the community? Do you have ideas for how we do that?
Of course it's challenging, and it's not only challenging for the Federation to make that happen, but it's challenging for a working parent, and particularly if they have children at home. I mean, it's a juggle. That being said, it's also fulfilling and satisfying, and you're meeting people who nourish you. So I encourage you not to think it can't be. In Los Angeles, the Women's Campaign has both events for people who are not working during the day and people who do work during the day. So we have a whole women's professional network. Those events only take place in the evening and have taken place on Zoom, but do take place in person. And I have to imagine that there are volunteer opportunities available in the Portland community that you can do on a weekend or with your family that would also add to your fulfillment. The work-life philanthropy volunteer balance is really tricky. I worked full-time at the beginning of all of this in commercial banking. It's very tricky. On the other hand, what was true from the beginning continues to today, which is I get back way more than I could ever give. So I encourage you to try to find a way. And I encourage Wendy and the Federation professionals to make sure there are things accessible to women who work.
Thank you. And I'm sure Caron will mention at the end of this program that we are in the midst of Good Deeds Month. And so there are lots of volunteer opportunities for individuals and families. The next question that came in is we're curious about your thoughts on anonymous or not giving a philanthropy in women's names.
I'm not, you mean giving anonymously?
Does
that mean giving without attributing your name to it? Well, I'm going to go with it. That's what it is.
Yeah,
and if I'm wrong, whoever that is, send another question to Wendy.
A clarifying question.
Yes. So here is what I would say. I'm not a big fan. And the reason I'm not a big fan is you lose the opportunity to set an example. So every time you put your name to a gift and somebody sees you on a list, I mean, how many times do you open an invitation to a Federation event and look to see who's on the honorary committee? Because you know they're supporting it and you want to be on that list or you want to be in the room with them. So you lose the opportunity to set the example if you give anonymously. There are extenuating circumstances, of course, that if that is the only way that you can give for whatever reason, okay, please don't give because, don't not give because I said that. But you lose that impact on your fellow community members when you give anonymously.
Right. Thank you. Yes, that's exactly what the question was.
Okay.
And you're right. Wherever I go, when we used to go, always scanning the sponsorship list, always scan the donor list, like, who do I know? No other major questions are coming in right now. So that means you and I can just sit here and chit chat if you want to. So let me see, because I didn't do all of my questions just because you were answering everything so beautifully, but you have such a wealth of experience throughout your travels and people you've met and people you've been inspired by and people you've inspired. I wonder if you can share us a story with us, a memorable story about where you've gone and seen impact directly or been impacted.
Okay, I'm going to answer that. And then I'm going to harken back to something that I didn't fully answer before that I want to say, which is you were talking about how to engage other people and get them involved. And I just want to say, you can't do this now on Zoom, obviously, but I really encourage you that when you want someone to come, don't just invite them, go pick them up, go sit with them and go be with them, because I don't care how old you are. It is intimidating to walk into a room by yourself. So I'm just going to really encourage you, drive over, pick them up, and make sure you're seated at the same table. Okay, just wanted to say that. Okay, so what pops into my mind are two things. One is I had the great good fortune of hosting Elie Wiesel in my home. And I knew how much he meant to my mom and how inspired she was by him. And I had the great good fortune of inviting my mother to come. And it was a very intimate dinner, and my children having the opportunity to interact with him and being in the same room with him and with my mom was something I will never, ever forget. At the time, my youngest, who's now 22, I think he was 5. And Elie Wiesel said to him, "Do you know what the Holocaust is?" And my son said, "I think it's like a tsunami." And it was right after we had suffered, there had been a terrible tsunami. Whatever year that was, do you remember when there was a horrible tsunami in Asia, I believe?
In Japan.
In Japan. And that's what he associated with the Holocaust. And instead of correcting him, he put his arm around him and said, "Exactly." And my 5-year-old hasn't forgotten that. Well, now my 22-year-old, but at the time, 5. And in terms of impactful visits, so I'm a big believer in missions. God willing, they're coming back. We're talking about a mission to Israel from the Los Angeles Jewish community this fall. We're talking about a JFNA leadership mission in July. So I think we're coming back. And, I had always heard about what it was like to go in a walk-up apartment to visit an elderly Russian immigrant not an immigrant, a Russian elderly person in the former Soviet Union. And I had heard about it and heard about it and heard about it and heard about it. And everybody talking about the 4th floor walk up. And I just kept thinking, oh, it just can't actually be that. Like they're just painting a picture out of a movie. And then I went on a mission and I went into the 4th floor walk up apartment, just my husband and I, and had lunch with someone who was not visited very often, but who we didn't forget about. And that woman, it meant so much to her that we sat down with her and talked to her. I don't remember her name. I just remember how I felt being with her. Someone said, I think it was Ruth Weiss, who I listened to once speak, who said, when it's raining in Poland, a Jew in Los Angeles puts up their umbrella. And that's really how I feel about how we are as a Jewish community. It doesn't matter where we are, we take care of each other. And I just love that. And I loved seeing it with my own 2 eyes.
Thank you. For those who aren't familiar with the term mission in this context, can you just give
Sure.
a 2-second overview of what
Sure.
a mission?
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So it's a trip, but it's a trip with the opportunity to learn about our work, to go and see the work with your own 2 eyes, and to travel with like-minded people to share an experience that will impact you for the rest of your days. For me, visiting Sarvash, which is a Jewish summer camp, full of children from all over Eastern Europe. I mean, you think I was in love with Jewish summer camp before. Watching it and seeing it with my own eyes, where people all over the dining hall spoke 20 different languages, but came together to sing Hebrew songs together. I mean, we do beautiful work around the world. And that is something that JDC has made happen through wonderful philanthropists all over the world. You can't believe it until you see it with your own eyes. And it's it couldn't be more impactful. If you have the opportunity to join a mission, go.
I just got chills when we talked about that, picturing that dining hall, picturing the kids. There's a question that's come in about national trends. What do you see in terms of national trends with philanthropy, with the Jewish communities?
I think there is a lot of focus on transfer of philanthropy, transfer of wealth. I'm seeing a lot of conversations about it. I don't know if you're familiar with the Jewish Future Pledge. I'm on the advisory board of the Jewish Future Pledge, which came about because of this. There is going to be a huge transference of wealth from generation to generation. And there's a lot of conversation about how to have the conversation with your children and your grandchildren. The Jewish Future Pledge is just that. It is a pledge that you sign that says that when you die, that 50% of your estate, no matter the size, if it's $1,000 or $1,000 million, or I guess that would be $1 billion, will go Jewishly. And you don't have to say where Jewishly. You've just made the statement that 50% of your wealth is going Jewishly. I do, and I signed that immediately, and it caused a conversation with my children and my grandchildren that I'm glad to have had, of like, why would you sign that? Because I don't just care about the Jewish future now, I care about the Jewish future for my children and for my grandchildren. So I think that's the national conversation that I am seeing. And then the one around anti-Semitism and security is just loud, and we'll address it.
Thank you so much for sort of wrapping up our conversation, talking about what it means to leave a legacy, and to see that legacy growing. Oh, I got one more question. I was just about to say, last call, don't have to go home, but you can't stay here kind of thing. But someone, again, it's happy hour. So a question about what has been the most fulfilling part of your role as a female Jewish leader?
So I'd say two things. First, I don't love that I'm only the third woman chair of the Federation in Los Angeles. That really bothers me since we've been around for more than 100 years. But I am proud to be a woman chair. And there've been more general campaign chairs who are women, but not chairs of the Federation. So it's very satisfying to me to be a woman and the chair. I am the first female chair of the Foundation for Jewish Camp. It's not very old. It's only about 15 years old, but I sure plan to not be the last woman's chair of the Foundation for Jewish Camp. And then it's the sisterhood. It's not only something I got to experience with my own real sisters, but it is a sisterhood of women who, there's nobody I'd rather spend time with than women who value giving back. And what I get from that is immeasurable.
Beautiful. Thank you. I have had just a wonderful hour with you. I hope others have too. I think we've wrapped up the Q&A section. Oh wait, one new message. Oh, all right. Just we're saying now that I'm going to pass the baton, the microphone, over to Sharon and Liz to wrap up. But Julie, this has been such a treat. Please give my love to the family, as always.
Thank you, Jemmy. It's been a treat to do it with you.
Yes. At some point, we will clink in person, L'chaim.
You got it.
Well, thank you both, Jemmy and Julie. Julie, if I had more time, I'd tell you that I've done that 50% already with my family. I don't have children, but I have niece and nephew, and set up my IRA account. But now I'm going to add more to my giving, and 50% goes Jewishly. So anyway, I want to thank you so much. I have been involved in the National Women's Philanthropy. I'm a past alumni, and keeps on working with Liz and Priscilla and the rest of the Jewish women in Portland to raise money for our community, as well as working on women's philanthropy and other issues here. My mother, who's on this Zoom today, Elaine Savinar, was on one of the first women's missions with, and I think it was in the 1960s. And she went to Poland, Romania, and then to Israel and made great, long-lasting friends. And I introduced her at a Lion of Judah conference one time and said, here, you're part of this too. And I feel like I have followed in her footsteps. And I'm very lucky to have been part of her family. Liz, I'll pass this on to you. Unmute. Unmute.
Okay. Thank you, Sharon. And Jimmy and Julie, fantastic. I thoroughly enjoyed hearing all of your experiences, Julie, and can relate so beautifully to what you're telling us. And hopefully the rest of the women who attended this event feel the same way. I'm currently on the National Women's Philanthropy Board for the Jewish Federations of North America, and Sharon and Priscilla both have been there as well. But on the board, I have a friend who is from Hartford, Connecticut, and she and her group of philanthropy women from Hartford were founders of a project called Dignity Grows. And so I'm proud to announce that Portland has now become a chapter. We're the 15th in the country to form this Dignity Grows chapter. And what it does, it provides personal and menstrual hygiene products to women, girls, and individuals assigned female at birth who cannot afford them. And this is something that we are starting here in Portland. I believe our first bag packing day will be May 2nd, but I digress. So on the new project, this project Dignity Grows, each tote bag, we have Dignity tote bags, and they will be filled with, they will be given to the recipients free of charge. They're reusable, they're zipper tote bags filled with a month's supply of personal and menstrual hygiene products, and which includes sanitary pads, panty liners, toothbrush, toothpaste, soap, shampoo, and deodorant. And our hope is that these totes will help individuals attend school and work and be able to participate in the community without interruption. Currently, I was totally unaware, but women could not even go to work. They couldn't afford many of these products. Nicole Sachs has generously stepped up to chair the program. And if anyone wants to find out more about this program and how to become involved, they can contact Wendy at jewishfederationportland.org. Second thing I would like to tell you about today, that's another exciting opportunity, a way to get involved without having to pack your suitcase and go to Israel, is the Heart to Heart. The Heart to Heart mission is going to be a 3-part virtual mission this year instead of everyone going to Israel. And it will take place on Tuesdays, April 20th, April 27th, and May 4th from 10 to 11 in the morning. And I think Wendy has sent out information about this earlier to everyone through a newsletter. And please sign up. You will just be amazed at how much, how you will grow and become educated, and the friends you will form just from Zoom. And the women who've gone on the real heart-to-heart missions to Israel just rave about it and can hardly wait to go back. So I think that's all that I have, just those 2 programs to tell you about, and hope that you all would like to get involved. And I want to thank everyone who's on today for hanging in there with us and listening to the last part of the program that's telling you about what's happening in Portland. And hopefully there will be a time in the near future, maybe this summer, we don't know, when we can see each other in person and talk about the hugs that Julie was talking about. We all miss those. And I miss seeing all of you in person. And thank you very much for tuning in today. Back to Wendy or Priscilla, I'm not sure.
Actually, just wanted to thank everyone again on behalf of the Jewish Federation. I want to just from the bottom of my heart thank Julie for joining us from my homeland, Los Angeles, and Jemmy, just a lovely way to spend our afternoon, and for all of you for spending time with us, and Sharon, Priscilla, and Liz, always a delight. So thank you all. We look forward to seeing you, and there will be all the different ways that we mentioned about getting involved. I'll include in a follow-up email, so you don't have to memorize it. You don't have to worry about it. It'll be there, and have just a joyous rest of your evening, and we will see you soon, we promise. So have a great night. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.